Hey Mal, here we are again, arriving at the fourth noble truth.
Yep.
Would you like to continue?
Yes, with great pleasure. So the fourth noble truth. The four noble truths are reflected in dependent arising. So when there is greed, ignorance, and hatred, there is dukkha. When there is no greed, ignorance, and hatred, there is nirvana. So it's like this kind of formula. And the way the formula goes is when there is greed, ignorance, and hatred, being the second truth, there is the first truth. When there is non-greed, non-ignorance, non-hatred, being the fourth truth, there is the third truth, if that makes sense. So traditionally, the fourth truth is understood as the path of freedom, the path of awakening. And it's the Eightfold Path. It's the Noble Eightfold Path. And this consists of three components, being wisdom, ethical behaviors, and meditation or cultivation. And I've talked about this many times, but I'll just go through it very, very briefly. This path aims towards cultivating insight, wisdom, and compassion. And this path, the path components are right view, right intention. That's the wisdom components, the path factors, I should say. The path factors in the wisdom component are right view, right intention. Right view means seeing things clearly, seeing and understanding things. Right intention means having intentions that are directed towards goodwill, letting go, and harmlessness. Right speech, right action, right livelihood are the ethical components. And basically they speak of living a life or living in a world and acting with your speech and body and mind and the way we live in the way we live in the world with an understanding of reducing harm. In fact, engendering goodwill, engendering peacefulness. It is like it's after wisdom in the path, so to speak. When we have a good understanding of something, we make firm intentions in relationship to that understanding. And the actions we do are in line with our good intentions. The actions we do are the ethical component of the Eightfold Path. And when we have that mental stability, when we have that kind of groundedness or foundation of ethics, then we're more able to cultivate our minds with courageous effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And that's the way we grow and develop wisdom. It's kind of like the quickening. We quicken with our attention that is mindful, where mindfulness refers here to remembering to bring attention to experience in a way that is discerning and, actually remembering to bring attention to experience in a way that's connected to the whole of the Eightfold Path. And concentration refers to bringing attention in and gathering it and putting it in one spot. So when we remember with courage to bring attention to experience and we focus on it, it's like from that ground, wisdom grows. And the Eightfold Path is often depicted as a wheel because it turns and gains momentum the more it turns. Oh, I didn't turn my recording on, never mind. I'm starting it now. I'm recording this on another video. So what happens with the Eightfold Path, it's depicted as a wheel because it turns and it gains momentum as it turns in the direction of freedom, rolls towards a freedom. So coming back to Coming now to COVID-19 and the various manifestations of suffering that we talked about in the first in the first Noble Truth. It is possible. I mean, it's like if we have a clear understanding about the cause and conditions of COVID-19, how it's transmitted, how it arises, how it develops, and so on, we can make firm intentions to prevent it. We can make firm intentions to mitigate the crisis. Then we can follow through with our intentions by doing whatever we need to do in terms of reducing transmission, finding vaccines, and so on and so forth, to reduce that transmission and be healed, or just put a restraint on this proliferation of and transmission of COVID-19. Then we're in a space where we can kind of think about things and look at the world and think about what social, economic, and strategic political practices we could use to prevent this rising again. It's like we're cultivating, we're stopping and reflecting, and we're cultivating a kind of global wisdom, if that makes sense. And that global wisdom can further encourage us to act in particular ways and so on. So that's one way we could understand how the Eightfold Path works with COVID-19 on a global level. At a personal level, it's like we see the various patterns that are causing suffering within our hearts. When we can see them, we can make a firm resolve to not feed into them. Like, for example, if we're worried, if we're at home worrying all the time about whether we've got COVID-19, and we're just in our heads so much that we tend to forget our bodies, and we're waking up in the middle of the night, oh my God, I've got COVID-19, whatever, blah, blah, blah. When we can see that we're caught in this cycle, we can make a firm intention to short circuit it, to do something different. And then we can follow through with actions about how we can do that. The actions that we could do, for example, is when we see worryings arising, we can just firmly say to ourselves, here's worrying. I'm not going to buy into it. I'm not going to feed into it. When we see the temptation to get rid of that sense of uncertainty, we can make a resolve to ourselves. No, I'm just going to sit with this. I'm going to stay with this. I'm going to be with this, rather than feeding into those perpetual cycles of ruminative thinking or worrying and so on. Excuse me again. I'm not COVID-19 positive, by the way. I don't think. Haven't been tested, but I've been so socially isolated out here. I'm even doing all sorts of things that I'm seeing people across the internet and so on. So anyway, rather than going on a blah, 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 I'll come back. When we can act in ways that support our clear understanding and our good intentions, then we have the composure and the stability to cultivate our minds and see a bit deeper. So with meditation, we can go a bit deeper. And there's two aspects of meditation. One aspect is serenity. The other aspect is insight. Insight and serenity balance each other. Insight is about seeing clearly the way things are. Serenity is about stabilizing and centering your mind and developing clarity and focus and stillness and quietude. They work together because if you have a quiet and still mind, you can see clearly into the way you're doing things and have insight. If insight develops without the support of serenity, you can get caught up in lots of concerns because you're seeing the problems that are arising. And if serenity develops without any insight, it can be misdirected. Like you can get very concentrated, quiet, still, consciousness changes and so on, but there's no kind of real direction for you to, well, there may not be any real direction for you to develop insight with. It's kind of like it's a waste of all that power of mind. So a couple of practices that I think are really fantastic and represent both these approaches. The first practice is mindfulness, which many of us know. And in the Satipatthana Sutta, they talk about 4 applications of mindfulness, or 4 foundations of mindfulness, being body, feelings, being, hedonic quality of pleasantness, unpleasantness, or neither. Mind, referring to emotional states, moods, states of mind, and so on, usually either directed towards greed, ignorance, and hatred, or their opposites. And the 4th foundation is mindfulness of phenomena. And that usually refers to looking at patterns in our mind that either directed towards increasing our suffering or decreasing it and waking up. So mindfulness is really, really fantastic and helpful to help us short circuit feeding into our cycles. It brings us to the realities of the present. And mindfulness of body is usually given as a foundation, as the foundation of the foundation, I should say. It's usually given as the basics, because it's easy to be grounded in your body. It's easier, it's more tangible. And mindfulness of body can become a practice even at advanced levels, because it's very easy to focus on the body and be grounded in the body. One of the mindfulness of body practices that I like is being attentive to earth element in the body. Earth element is the qualities of hardness and softness. It's also this experience of heaviness and groundedness. And, as you're sitting there, you might connect with the chair that you're sitting in. That connection is pressure, hardness. That's earth element. It's really fantastic. It's grounding. It's like it's always there for us as a support and as a coming back to reality, coming back to this. The other meditation that I think is really helpful in this current COVID-19 crisis is the development of compassion. Compassion as a meditation practice and compassion in daily life. So technically, compassion is one of the 4 divine abodes. Compassion meditation as a meditation is one of the 4 divine abodes. The 4 divine abodes are loving kindness or benevolence, compassion, appreciative joy, mudita in Pali, and equanimity, upekkha in Pali. So these 4 heart qualities are all about relationships. They're and divine. They give us like a level of a sense of being infinitely connected, not limited to this person, this being, but kind of infinitely connected. So as just one of these qualities refers to sensitivity to suffering and the commitment to alleviate it. That's just one way of talking about compassion. However, as a meditation practice, the way we work with this is we get a sense of compassion arising in our hearts, and then we nourish and nurture it. We become focused on it. The 4 heart qualities are within the serenity meditation. Technically, they're one of the serenity meditation practices. So when we can focus on this particular experience, when we put our attention into one object, it's like we become absorbed into that object and we become it and it becomes us. So it's like the way we do this is we first of all bring it to mind, we focus on it, we look at the nuances of it, we enrich it, we see all the possibilities possibilities around it, all the stimulants around it and all the rest of it. And then we begin to absorb into the experience. And everything disappears except for the quality of compassion. We can choose to think about other beings or think about ourselves, but in this case, it's like compassion, the boundaries that we set up, arbitrary boundaries we set up between me and you, fall away. So there's just compassion. And compassion is healing for ourselves and others. It comes back to that, that soothing system that I talked about at some stage. There's three emotional systems, the threat system, the reward system, and the connection soothing system. Compassion is at the core of that. It soothes us. It helps us feel safe. It helps us feel protected, and it heals. So in the next section, I'd like to guide in a very brief meditation on being grounded in earth element, and then going to a compassion meditation. As long as it doesn't just save the last one,